So what I wanted to talk about today was about identifying and getting what you want out of life. The reason for this video is, and it will cover several topics, is because recently I've been noticing in a lot of talks that a lot of people coming through the door, although they will initially profess that they want to be awakened or they want enlightenment, and they're also very sincere about it, upon closer examination are actually really there just for something else altogether. It reminds me of an incident that occurred with me years ago when a man came to a talk, and we literally went forward and backwards talking about all the practices he was doing, all the spiritual approaches he'd studied. Towards the end of the talk, literally within the last 10-15 minutes, knowing that obviously time was running out, something within him just literally just spoke out, and it was something that was so pure and sincere and just so present that I knew that what I was hearing was why he was really here. And it was as simple as, it's my living situation. And what had transpired is his living situation was literally holding him down from living the life that he wanted and getting what he wanted. Over the next 10 minutes, he was able to, because he felt safe and comfortable, to able to talk to me. And at the end of that, what took place was just this complete transformation in him. I then had the pleasure of bumping into him many months later, and I could see he was happy and very content with his life and really didn't want to know about enlightenment or awakening, because his life was good. He was present and he'd got what he wanted. And this is something I'm starting to see in a lot of my talks, and no doubt other teachers see this as well, that people will come in and initially talk about the fact that they're very sincere seekers and they need to wake up. And when we dig a little bit deeper and we look at what's behind them wanting to wake up, we may find it's either a relationship issue, a financial issue, a family issue. And what happens is, in their desperation, they feel that enlightenment, similar to myself many years ago, will provide them the answers and will allow them to just, will allow the problem to just magically disappear. And it's spiritual bypassing at its finest, because as Rumi stated, the wound is where the light enters. But in this case, we don't want to go towards the wound, which is obviously the issue that's holding them back from getting what they want out of life. So instead, what we look to do is we look to go for a catch-all like enlightenment, and something completely impossible, because there's nothing we can do to wake up, and literally give ourselves like an entire new direction, because we so don't want to deal with the elephant in the room. And it's spiritual bypassing at its finest. And what I've been doing recently is really talking about that as a way to really kind of make people feel comfortable and secure, in order for them to really just come out and ask the questions that matter. As I say in my talks, there is no such a thing as a as a silly question. Every question is valid, because there may be a question that you may think is really silly, but it could be the very question that sets you free or allows you really to identify why you're in the room. I have a young man who talks to me on a regular basis, and what I've noticed is he has been asking me over the last couple of months really basic questions, just things like, I don't know, what do you have for breakfast, how do you enjoy yourself, what do you do in your leisure time? And what I found is, by answering those questions, it's allowed me to demystify this whole idea of awakening and enlightenment and what have you. But consequently, it's also allowed him to really just feel comfortable and to really identify why he's actually in the room. And it is literally a case of, he's now realizing that he really does have to face his life and actually deal with the issues at hand, because spiritual enlightenment isn't a get out of jail card. It doesn't mean that life will magically become brilliant. You're still going to have to pay the bills, and you're still going to have to deal with those issues that are troubling you or holding you back. And by honestly identifying why you're in the room and being honest with yourself. I mean, I remember there was another young man who came to talks, and he asked me, he goes, what's the best way for me to get as much benefit as humanly possible out of these talks? To which I replied, be honest. But more importantly, just more than being honest to other people, be really honest with yourself. Really call yourself out. And you may find that you're not really looking for enlightenment. You're not really looking for an awakening, there could be something much more pressing or much more immediate. As Rumi stated, the wound is where the light enters, and sometimes we want to avoid the wound and deal with it with a solution that may be completely and utterly not needed. So really, by being honest with ourselves, by being patient with ourselves, and by being honest and realizing that no question is really out of bounds if you're sitting in an online meeting or in a live meeting, and by really taking that time to identify why you're actually in the room, you will, by acknowledging that, by accepting that, and by really fully being present with the problem and really dealing with whatever thought, feeling, or emotion comes up, that however uncomfortable that may be, you may find that when the energy breaks up around that, when we demystify, this big boogeyman in the corner that's been just sitting there, just looking at us and just making life impossible, we may find that we are another step closer to getting what we want out of life. So it's important, and it's something I've had the pleasure of watching people do a lot when they finally get honest with themselves and actually identify why they're in that room. Because I will fully concede spirituality is such a romanticized, mystical way of living. We want to sit in these mehfils, we want to sit in these satsangs, and we want to feel that we're having these amazing openings, and we feel that because we're having these cathartic releases or crying or laughing that we're dealing with our lives. And sometimes we may not be. We may be literally spiritually bypassing and not traveling, but believing we are. And if we're really honest with ourselves, it may just be that the problem is actually quite simple. Like I said many, many years ago, the journey started for me because I was in pain. And had I just taken that time and really felt that pain, as opposed to taking this diversion, this enlightenment, which this magical event that was just going to make everything magically become wonderful overnight, life was going to go from black and white into color in one easy step. Had I really sat with that messiness, that uncomfortableness, that pain, that confusion, that feeling of brokenness, it may have been that, I could have quite easily have got out of the woods, a lot sooner and just got on with my life. So it's important really to just, use your inquiry, if you're on this path, to use, your time when you're self-inquiring or when you're in a meeting, whether it's online or a live meeting, to really identify and, why you're really in that room. And that requires a real honesty, because let's be honest, we don't like it when people call us out sometimes on some of our traits, you know what I mean? We sometimes react quite badly, and it can be 10 times worse, no doubt, when we finally admit that, look, I've messed up, I've got a financial problem, or I've got a relationship issue, or I've got a family problem, and I really need to be present there, and I really need to deal with that. But instead, what I'm doing is I'm sitting in this room and I'm hoping there's going to be some magic once in a lifetime event. We also then kind of, in a sense, are being really short-term in our thinking, and we're literally like buying a lottery ticket, hoping that we're going to win the jackpot, knowing that our chances of winning are maybe in the millions. But by identifying why we're in that room, and as I said, going back to the quote by Rumi, the wound is where the light enters. We may find that by identifying what it is that is actually bothering us, what it is that ails us, that we're on that step further to, by acknowledging that and actually doing the work, we get what we want out of life. So our issues are resolved. And then in that place of peace and in that place of ease, we can then identify if it is actually enlightenment that we're looking for. There is this whole idea of this Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And I feel in a lot of spiritual traditions as well, a similar approach happens of really just helping people who come to talks, try and get their life together. I remember reading something in Lewis Brawley's book, Ghana, where he stated if U.G. Krishnamurti really liked someone, he would really get involved in their life and help them, whether it was on a mental, physical, financial, spiritual level. And we do make it easier then, because if we take away, sometimes we're so desperate to wake up as well. If we can take away that desperation by dealing with the issues, we may find that that desire to wake up goes as well. And that is really that last desire. And that's when we're more likely to wake up to our true nature. So in order to really, if it's enlightenment you're looking for, deal with the most immediate issue there and get that sorted. If you're in a room believing that some event is going to just, wake you up and everything's going to magically just, like I said, go from black and white to color, again, take your time and identify why you're really there. And if you're using this whole idea of waking up as a bypass, be brave enough and be honest enough with yourself to walk out of these places and actually go and do the work that's needed, because you may find that consequently, if we are able to live from this place of honesty and this place of patience and this place of ease, that we may consequently, just almost as a side effect of just really living presently and openly, realize who we truly are.